Of all the kitchen hacks I know, Better Than Bouillon is my favorite. It's great for broth, of course, but you can also use Better Than Bouillon as a flavor enhancer. Just a spoonful adds so much flavor to stir fry, sauces, even marinades. Plus, they have reduced sodium and organic options, and the Culinary Collection, which includes amazing flavors like Italian herb and smoky chipotle. Make everything better with Better Than Bouillon. For free shipping on 2 or more jars, use code BETTER at betterthanbouillon.com.
So it goes like this. It goes, good morning to you. Good morning to you. Good morning, dear children. Good morning to all. My name is Richard Dix, and this is How Did That Happen? A podcast where I look at everyday things or events and try to figure out how they came to be. Every week I will research one topic, and by the end of the episode, I hope to truly have the answer to the question, how did that happen? All right, welcome back to another episode of How Did That Happen? HDTH. This week we are discussing birthdays and everything that a birthday entails, from birthday cakes to birthday presents to birthday candles to different rituals and things that people do on their birthdays. I'll even tell you where we got the birthday song from, and I'll even tell you where kindergarten came from. It has nothing to do with this, and it will be in the things I didn't know before segment, but we will find out all of those things. Before we get into that, before we get down to the nitty gritty of what birthdays really are, see, what am I watching? I just watched that show, The Mammals, on Amazon, Amazon Prime. I never know which one to call it. Is it Amazon or is it Prime? You say them both together, or I don't know. This whole thing. But the show is amazing. It's a 6-part. You know, I like those people who listen. I like a lot of European television. This one is set, I believe it's set in Britain. I'm not 100% sure. It's shot differently. It's just starring James Corden, and he's married to a French woman, and it's like this whole little back and forth about infidelity. And I don't know, she brings up some really good points even after, you know, she's quote unquote caught in the act, which she says you'll see in this show she wasn't. And there's a twist that I'll leave for the rest of you to find, but she really does make some points about infidelity and where your mind goes, and the idea of that if you've already cheated in your mind, what difference does it make if you cheat in person? Which, I mean, obviously is a nuanced idea. There's a lot of different layers to that, but it's not crazy. And then I just watched last night, I watched Run, Sweetheart, Run, also on the Amazon or Prime Amazon, whatever you want to call it. And it was good. It's like a sneak vampire flick. It's you don't know, and unless I miss something, dude's a vampire. And I don't know, it kind of took something away from it when I found that out. Because I recently just watched another movie, I can't remember what it was called, but it was the same kind of concept of like this really rich guy who calls people to his house, and all of a sudden they get murdered, no one knows what's going on, but he was just a murderer. But when you add the supernatural part to it, I don't know, it almost makes it, I don't know, it takes something out of it maybe for me, but it was still a pretty good movie. My one main gripe with it, and if anyone wants to put in the comments as to what was going on or explain this to me, I mean, they lit him on, well, I guess spoiler alert, sorry. They lit him on fire at the end of the movie, and it was this whole like long trail of his blood, and then they lit the trail, and it was as if he was leaking motor oil. I don't know how else to describe it. And all my times of watching vampire flicks, I've never seen that, so I was kind of took me out of it for a second. But so that's what I'm watching. Quick plug for the minisodes, bite-sized bios. Last week's episode was about Chuck Norris. Learned a lot about him. Gonna try to keep doing different people that I don't think are being profiled on other podcasts, or you're not gonna find too many Chuck Norris documentaries out there or any other stuff. So I got the next person that's coming up is also someone who's just, I don't know. I don't feel like people are talking about them as much as I would like for them to be talked about. So it's where we're gonna dive into their lives here on HDTH and bite-sized bios. And one more thing before we get out of here, this is the 50th episode. 50. We finally reached 50 episodes. I'll be honest, I never thought that would even happen. I really didn't. About 6 months ago, I was pretty sure I was going to stop the podcast altogether, but I didn't. We keep going, and I think we get new people here every week who love to find out how things happen, the same way I do. So yeah, I mean, I appreciate all you guys who've come back time after time. We are at episode 50 and hoping to do 50 more. Let's see. Make sure you go into hdthappen.com to find out where all the other things happen, and see the transcripts and and episode notes that I have for every episode. We're working on getting them all up there and all the works cited and everything. But yeah, I'm not gonna ramble on for too much more. I appreciate you guys, like I said, and so without further ado, here is the 50th episode. So this whole episode is going to be about it's going to be all encompassing as far as birthdays go. For the first idea for the topic for this episode was going to be birthday cakes, but then I realized in the way this podcast is expanding is I really wanted to just cover all the different aspects that go into birthdays, like the idea of a birthday, and that's where we're going to start right here. Birthday traditions date back to the ancient Egyptians, who believed that when pharaohs were crowned, they became gods. So their coronation day was their birthday. So it wasn't like the same way as we look at it as basically, whereas like, you know, it's the day you came out of your mother. That's for us. For them, it's the day that you were crowned as gods, and this was more just for like the actual pharaohs and not the regular people. It doesn't say that they actually exchanged gifts on this day, and we'll get to the idea of gifts later. But it seems to be just more of a celebration, and basically from that point, from having the celebrations about the quote unquote God Day, you know, kind of eventually, like most things, start with the wealthy, then trickle down to the common man. And now we celebrate birthdays with cakes and gifts and songs and all that, and we're definitely going to get to that. So that brings us to the idea of birthday cakes. Birthday cakes started in Germany in the 1400s, give or take, because of a festival called Kinderfest, where each year the child would receive a cake and one candle on the cake for every year of their life, and then one extra one to symbolize the upcoming year for luck. But still not at this point have gifts come into the mix. It's just the cakes. And so Kinderfest, I believe it's still celebrated today in Germany, but it was a very big festival back then for all the children in whatever village that you were in. Everybody would come out. All the kids would get a cake. So that is really kind of the first. It's not the first time that we see cakes and candles together, but it's the first time that we see, I think, really like the idea of a birthday cake symbolizing your birth year, you know, kind of celebrating that, and also it being, I don't know, like a positive experience. I'm not sure, because we're gonna see. I mean, I guess they're all positive, but we'll get into like how the Greeks and the Romans, how we even get candles onto a cake. But this is believed that the first actual birthday cake was made in Germany in the Middle Ages, and it wasn't quite like what we would consider cakes. I guess that should be mentioned as well. Cakes were originally more of a coarse bread-like product, and they became sweeter later on. You know, as time goes on, that actually comes right around the 17th century when we start to get more sugar in cakes, because I mean, it's really, they say it's the Industrial Revolution that allowed for the widespread use of sugar, because before then sugar was also something that only the wealthy had access to. So nobody was making sweet cakes because nobody had sugar in their house anyway. And so by the 17th century, cakes during that time began to develop many of the aspects of the contemporary birth cake that we know now, like multiple layers, icing, decorations. But these, like I said, basically until we hit the Industrial Revolution, only really are available to the wealthy. I mean, maybe a poor person got one every now and then, but it's definitely very much more common with people who had money. Let's see. The phrase "Happy Birthday" would not appear on cakes until we get the actual Happy Birthday song, which is quote unquote called "Happy Birthday to You." That is a whole thing in itself. I will explain to you the origins of the birthday song, and it's probably the most interesting thing that I found out when I was looking all this stuff up, because it has to do with like lawsuits, and we'll get there. But now we're going to talk about why we put the candles on the cake. We're going to just kind of break this whole thing down, like I said, piece by piece. And so one theory is that the history of putting candles on cakes began in ancient Greece. The Greeks would make round cakes to honor Artemis, the goddess of the moon. And so the Greeks set to baking moon-shaped cakes and decorate them with, you guessed it, candles, right? So they shone like the moon. So the whole idea was to bake a cake in the shape of a moon and then put candles on it, so it would be just as bright as you see the moon in the night sky. You know, so the lit candles on the cake represented the glow of the moon, And the smoke from the candles carried their prayers and wishes to the gods who lived in the sky. It's a very, very elaborate scheme here to try to get, I guess, all your thoughts and prayers out to your gods. But that is believed to be where we get the actual idea of putting candles on a cake. I mean, there's multiple theories. There's really, when you look at it, I think it's then when we see the way that cultures intermingle with each other as time goes on. I think this all, or as I say, I mean, two things can be true at once. But I think this is just because so many other cultures have versions of this that are basically the same thing. Or, you know what I mean? It's like, then we've seen how much European culture has taken from the Greeks and the Romans. So it's not surprising at all that this would, because I think someone said that it may have started in Germany, but it's like, okay, but what was Germany before? It was Germany. I mean, not to get too deep or whatever. I'm not a historian. But you know, like I said, they took all their, or not all of it, but some rituals from the Greeks and the Romans, and this could just be one of them. It's going off on a tangent. We're going to bring it back though. Let's see. So like I said, other people believe that the tradition actually started in Germany, where a candle was supposedly placed on the cake to represent the light of life. And I mean, I believe that, and they definitely, you know, were the pioneers in birthday cakes. But the whole Greek thing sounds a little more realistic to me. And for whatever reason, in 2017, the good people of Clemson University studied whether or not people, you know, basically put bacteria on the cake when they blew out the candles. And I don't need to hide the answer from you. You probably already know it. The answer is yes. That's not surprising, nor do I think it should be the basis of a study of any kind. But when I read that, I was just like, wow, that's someone had to green light that, had to pay for that, and then I guess put a microscope or whatever over a cake after somebody blew out the candles. I mean, anybody can look at that and be like, oh, just, you know, because is there any other food in any other situation where you're like, first, can you blow on that for me? If you're not like a child to a mom or a child to a kid or mom to a kid, that's what I meant to say. But like any other situation, you're not going to be like, hey, can you blow, you know, like, and then now I'll eat it? No, because it's disgusting. But we do it every year for all the people in our lives. So I have here a just an odd birthday ritual that I will share with you before we get to birthdays around the world. And let's see. So in the past, it was believed that evil spirits visited people on their birthdays. That sounds awesome. And that to protect the people whose birthday it was from evil, people must surround the individual and then make them merry. So partygoers made noise to scare away evil spirits, which really, really does speak to the whole idea of trying to make someone happy on their birthday. I wonder if it's where it all comes from, because they're like, if you don't make this person happy, then the evil spirits will consume them. Because there's this whole conversation back and forth of like, should people force people to be happy on their birthdays? And I, for one, don't think that you should. I don't think you should focus on sadness, and I don't think that you should, you know, you should try to make the entire experience positive. But if that person has, I don't know, mellow or melancholy thoughts, or even, you know, less than that on their birthday, I think that's okay. But there is this whole thing of like, you know, yay, it's your birthday, and you know, if someone's not responding like that, they think there's something wrong with them. But it just shows that just this whole idea just comes from a long ago time when people thought that, and maybe it's true or not, I don't know, that evil spirits visited people on their birthdays. That, you know, could explain why people have so many issues with their birthdays. But yeah, and that's gonna bring us to birthdays around the world. And that was a bunch of people singing the happy birthday song in all their native languages. I think at least one of those was Chinese. I forget all the others that were in that little group right there. But I will post the video that where I got that from. You can check it out. It's actually pretty cool to see. They sing like, I think it's like 70 different people or 70 different languages and countries sing their version of a birthday song. I just picked that little sound because I thought it worked for this specific segment. But yeah, so we'll get the birthdays around the world. When you're in a Chinese birthday party, you would be given what's called a shao tao. It's one of those. It's definitely one of, maybe. But it's a birthday pastry, right? It's a lotus paste filled bun made of wheat flour and shaped and colored to resemble a peach, which sounds pretty cool. And rather than having one big cake like we do in the West, each guest gets their own shabao. In Western Russia, which that's, if you watch that video with the 70 different countries, when they do the Russian lady, it's just, you're just like, what are they doing in Russia, man? No offense. Don't come find me, Putin. But in Western Russia, And that was just about the song, and this is not that wild what they do here, but the birthdays. But in Western Russia, birthday children are served fruit pies with a birthday greeting that's carved into the crust. And the Swedish birthday cake is made like a pound cake, which sounds really good. I always enjoy a good pound cake. It's often topped with marzipan and decorated with the national flag. That's a very nationalist way of celebrating your birthday. Dutch birthday pastries are fruit tarts that are topped with whipped cream. So basically, depending on where you're at in the world, birthday cakes take on whole different shapes, sizes, and I guess even services. I don't know. But that's going to bring us to birthday presents. And so gifts have been given for all of human existence, and even before that, in the animal kingdom, there are certain, organisms and animals that do, function that give versions of gifts. Basically, you could say it's not going to be like an iPad or something like that, but it'll be like, food or something, But the tradition of giving gifts on birthdays did not start till much later. Some people believe that it started with the Persians, and that this was observed by the Greeks, who then brought it into Greece. Like I said, things just get passed on. It gets passed on, and later on, the Romans would also have their own version of gift giving when it came to birthdays. But it's thought that the gift giving is also a part of the warding off the evil spirits, which is kind of like what I was saying earlier. So that it all plays hand in hand. Of like, I guess a long time ago, and it may be true. So there are some people who get really somber on their birthdays, and I really feel for them. I've never had that many great birthdays in my life either. I don't know if that's the evil spirits, or maybe I wasn't getting enough gifts, hint, to ward off these evil spirits. But so that's like that goes along with the same idea of being merry and trying to make people happy and give them gifts so the spirits go away. And it was believed that the spirits threatened to harm the birthday boy or girl on their special day, and they were mainly gifts to ensure prosperity and safety over the next year to come. They would normally include presents. They've always kind of been things like money, clothes, and food for the most part.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Let's see. I do have some international gift giving etiquette, if you will, kind of. So we'll start in China. So again, in China, the gift giving is a bit of a numbers game. As an example, anything to do with the number 4 is bad, right? You don't want to do that. And as in China, it sounds similar to the word death. So if you're giving something that kind of sounds like death, nobody wants that. So after receiving a red envelope, children will customarily tuck their envelopes under their pillows for 7 nights as a wish for good luck. But it says here the birthdays aren't formally celebrated until one turns 60, which is interesting. I'm not sure how that quite means. And then we get to India, and so they say in India, left hands are considered unclean, which I wonder why. I wonder honestly if it goes back to the toilet paper episode that we talked about, and it was in the Middle East, but not India, but they're pretty close enough to have similar cultures in certain aspects that they in the early Middle Eastern culture, it was normal, I believe, to wipe with your hands, right? So you would have like a wipe hand and a non-wipe hand. That's just thinking about why they would consider left hands to be unclean in culture. Yep, and now it's bugging me, so I gotta look it up. Google break. Taking a break to Google. Google break. Taking a break to Google. Yeah, and it turns out I'm actually kind of right. I wouldn't say 100% right because I don't want to just claim that, but it's definitely the unclean hand because it's used when you go to the bathroom and like cleaning like your feet and stuff like that. So it's like that's the hand you use for all like your body. So don't touch me with that kind of thing. This just goes to show, man, it's all connected. But so back to the reason why, or back to how they do birthdays in India, which is said that in like the smaller villages in India, they don't really even celebrate birthdays down there. It really is more of like if you get into a larger city before it becomes having where they will celebrate birthdays the way they do in the West. But so yeah, so the left hands are always considered unclean. So gestures such as touching, passing money, or giving gifts are to be done with the right hand. So don't come at me with your left hand, bro, please. Contrary to some other cultures, an odd number of objects or currency denotes good luck. For example, 11 should be given as opposed to 10. It's interesting. Let's see. We get to Japan. There are staunch traditions when it comes to gifting etiquette in Japan. One of the guidelines stipulates that presents should be refused up to 3 times before they get accepted, which is, I don't think I could get up to 3 times before I refuse. Also, every year on March 14th, this is actually really interesting, the men are expected to return the value of their received gifts threefold. So it's just like whatever you got before, I'm not sure if that was specifically a holiday thing, because this isn't specifically about birthdays. What I'm talking about right now, it's just the different ways that people give gifts in different cultures. So I'm not sure exactly what date also corresponds with March 14th, but I just like the idea that they're like, yeah, in a few months you're gonna give me back like 3 times what I'm giving you. Just cool to have that already kind of written in stone. This is the last one before we get to the birthday song, which, like I said, has its own thing. But so in South America, the majority of people from South American countries see the offering of sharp objects as a sign that you want to sever the relationship. So don't give anybody scissors or cooking knives, because they'll think it's over, whether it be friendship or whatever. On the eve of January 6th, at the end of the Christmas period, Argentinian children will customarily leave their shoes by their beds to be filled with small gifts. In Brazil, seaside settlements will send gifts of flowers, fruits, or jewelry out to sea in honor of the goddess of water. So there's just all the different ways. I thought, like I said, I'm really trying to break all of this stuff down, as I say on the website, to its foundation, and just figure out, how it happens. Whether we do or not, it's definitely, in pursuit of, that's the goal. So, I was really curious on all the different ways people give gifts in different cultures. You don't think about it. I would have never known, if I had a South American friend and I was like, oh, look at this cool knife, man, I bought you, and all of a sudden he's just like, oh, I thought we were cool. It's like, yeah, I'm just not from your culture. I didn't know that I couldn't do that. And so that brings us to the birthday song. It has a rich history of its own. So, the birthday song, Happy Birthday to You, as it is formally known as, is a song that is traditionally sung to celebrate a person's birthday. And according to the Guinness Book of World Records, which we just recently did an episode on them, it is the most recognized song in the English language, followed by For He's a Jolly Good Fellow, which it really is surprising. And maybe it's a generational thing. Maybe all going out now, that everyone knows that, at least the tune of that when you say it that way. Says the song's base lyrics have been translated into at least 18 languages, which I think was, you see from that video that I'll post, it's way more than that. And the melody of Happy Birthday to You comes from the song Good Morning to All, which has been traditionally attributed to American sisters Patty and Mildred Hill, who lived in Louisville, Kentucky. Now, that's where this kind of gets contentious. But before we get too deep into that, I will give you the lyrics / maybe serenade you guys with the original song lyrics. So it goes like this. It goes, good morning to you, good morning to you, good morning, dear children, good morning to all. Right, and so the idea of it was these sisters, they were singing these songs to greet the children as they came into the school in the morning, and it was the product of a highly focused and laborious effort to write a song that was extremely simple to sing, but still somewhat interesting and emotionally expressive as well. And so they really were working on trying to create songs for this exact purpose. It kind of didn't just fall into this little jingle or tune, if you will. So in 1889, Mildred and Patty, they began to collaborate on songs for kids, like I was saying, and then so eventually they would publish a book in 1894 that was called Song Stories for the Kindergarten. And so, like I said, they had very particular goals in mind for their project. And Patty Hill was even quoted as saying she would first write the words of the songs and then ask her sister to compose a melody to express these words and emotions and ideas fitted to the limited musical ability of a young child. So we have to write something that the people of this intellectual capacity can grasp and that will actually hold their attention. And so that was kind of the litmus for was it a good song or not. And so she kind of goes on to describe the process. So she says a draft of the song would be written, and then she would take it to the school the next morning and test it out with the kids. So basically you write it at home the night before, you're like, oh, let's see what happens in the morning. And so basically, and so when they tested it out, if it was too much for the kids, if they couldn't remember it, if they weren't interested, there was no call and response to it, then they would go back and try to just keep, tweaking it here, over and over and over again until they got a song that actually worked for them. And so, like I said, they published the book in either 1893 or 1894, depending on where you look at it. And this was done with a company, or the Clayton F. Summy company. She was a Chicago publisher. And these sisters basically, so trying to, because there's a lot to this. I'm trying to without going all over the place. I will get deeper into who these women are first before we get to the stuff that came to them. So they were, Patty was basically, she was she ran a kindergarten school. Started as a kindergarten teacher, and eventually moved up to principal. This is where she was able to test out, the different songs. And her sister Mildred was actually more of the artist. She was the one who was making the tune. She was actually an accomplished pianist, and so she's the one who actually made the melody for the song. And she also was into studying African American music. And she even wrote an article in the late 1800s that proclaimed that the melody and sound that comes from African American music would go on to become the basis for a uniquely American style of music, which is groundbreaking for its time when you really think about it, because she wasn't wrong. The true origins of rock, jazz, and hip hop all started in the Black community. So it's just like, wow, that she could see it so early and also had such a large effect on the world when you think about it. I mean, because the fact that this song and the melody that she created more than 130 years ago is still prevalent and is still, someone's probably singing it today. Someone's going to have that song sung to them today. So the song is in the public domain in the U.S. and in the European Union, and it's public domain in the EU because copyrights only last for the life of the author plus 70 years, and Patty Hill died in 1946. So as the last surviving author, the copyright actually expired in 2017. Now this story in America is a little more hairy. And that's almost what I was about to get into earlier. But basically, when they published the song in 1893, the people who did it, basically they kind of maintained the rights to the song, and then they were bought by this company named Chappell Music, and they held the rights for a long time. And then Warner Brothers in the late 80s actually bought that company. So they were a subsidiary of Warner Brothers, like Warner Brothers, the WB, and they claimed that they claimed that they had the rightful copyright for this. And what's wild is they were charging people fees to use the song. So basically, up until 2015, you had to pay to have the birthday song used basically in any space that wasn't how do they put it, where the majority of people there were not performers or were performers. So like if someone's on a stage singing happy birthday, you got to pay. But if you're 40 people at a park, then you're just at a birthday party, no. But if it shows up somewhere, which is different, it's different now, you don't have to pay for it because it's in the public domain. But back then, only 7 years ago, it was still basically you still had to pay for it to be used. And so it goes to court. It goes all the way up to the Supreme Court, and it's found that the actual copyright is invalid because the people, basically nobody really had any claim over it for the last 100 years, because I forget the exact, it gets real legal, but it's something to the effect of like, since the original copyright was never renewed like 100 years ago, then it basically fell into public domain right then, but nobody would say that because they wanted to make money off of it. And there are plenty of people, Warner Brothers had to pay out to the tune of like $14 million back to people who paid to have it in their song, or to have it in their movie, or to have it in their performance, or just or whatever. So it's, you would never, and there's still that a lot of people still want to say they don't know who wrote the song. After reading a lot about it, I honestly believe that the two sisters wrote the song, because the only other theory, I forget the guy that made it up, but he's saying like, I don't know, it said that it sounded so much like other songs from the past. I forget the songs he uses, but it's like, I don't know. I don't think it makes more sense to me that women who were working to try to do something to make a catchy song that everybody could understand, that they succeeded in that. It is a catchy song that everybody can understand. All right, we got a couple interesting facts about birthdays and the birthday song, and then we'll get out of here and move on to the next segment. So it didn't take long for the song to appear in films after it was already kind of made. It was only about 40 years later. I think in 1931, the Happy Birthday song was actually sung and appeared in a Broadway musical called The Bandwagon. So that was, it had only existed for about less than 40 years before it showed up in Broadway. And Walt Disney had to pay a $5,000 fee to use it in a parade, and the royalties charged on a scene of an MLK documentary, which was called Eyes on the Prize. It was so expensive that when they tried to bring it to DVD, they just chose not to do it, right? Which is crazy when you realize that it was already in the public domain. So like they didn't have to. It's a lot. And that is how birthdays happen. And now it's time for the roundup. And we're going to round it up. The original birthdays were celebrated by the Egyptians, but it actually had to do with the day the pharaoh became a god, and not the day they were actually born. The first birthday cakes were from Germany and originated from Kinderfest. Candles on the cake come from celebrations for the Greek god Artemis. The birthday song was created by two sisters from Kentucky. Things I didn't know before, and now I know them. Never heard of these things. What are they? All right, so for the things I didn't know before, I just have one, but I think it's a pretty big one. It's one that I actually sought out once I started doing this research, because it occurred to me that I didn't know anything about this either. It is about where the word kindergarten comes from. And so the word kindergarten comes from the German language. Kinder means children, garden means garden, and the term dates back to the 19th century. There was a man named Friedrich Froebel in the early 1800s who started the first kindergarten, which is literally translated to garden for children. It was actually in 1840. And according to him, and this is actually a pretty cool concept. I think actually when I read it, I thought it was going to be some BS, but he's quoted as saying, children are like tiny flowers, right? They are varied and need care, but each is beautiful alone and glorious when seen in the community of peers. So his idea was literally, he's kind of comparing children to flowers, and so he's creating a small place for children to go and to grow into people, basically. And this is a kindergarten, a children garden. And so really, before 1840, children under the age of 7 didn't really go to school that much, and this was part of it had to do with the idea that they thought from early childhood, it was believed that until you were 7, you didn't have the ability to focus or develop cognitive and emotional skills. So there was just the school of thought back then. Is that they're not developed enough to grasp anything. So what he actually did, he really founded an early education program for young children, which he called kindergarten, and it was literally a garden. It was a space where children could develop and flourish freely, and and have self-directed play under the guidance of the teacher. And so the place was filled with different objects that they could play with. It was basically designed to help children to appreciate patterns in nature and introduce them to basic concepts of science, geometry, and architecture. So it really was, what I found to be the most interesting about this whole thing is that literally he created a garden for kids and was like, this is where we're gonna nurture their minds. You would never think. I wouldn't think. But yeah, so that's why it's in the things I didn't know before. All right, it's been another episode of How Did That Happen? We learned a lot about birthdays. I learned a lot about birthday cakes. I know you guys really enjoyed when I sang that song. Like I mentioned earlier, glad to have gotten to 50 episodes. I can honestly tell you that I have 50 more episode ideas, so I'm not stopping anytime soon. We're just gonna keep putting out these episodes, finding out how things happen every Monday at 4:30 a.m. And then the bite-sized bios will also be released Thursdays at 4:30 a.m. I can just say thank you for anybody that listens, and we'll see you guys in a couple days.
Okay, round 2. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.